To discuss this, Dr. Derya Unutmaz joins me now from Istanbul. He's an immunologist with the Jackson Laboratory. So, Derya, is this a case of the Delta variant being a game changer in terms of people's minds and their actions?
Absolutely. Delta variant is much more infectious, and you see that we see that all over the world. For example, in Vietnam, when there were few cases until now, until recently, since the beginning of the pandemic, now there are thousands of cases and hundreds are dying. So clearly, Delta is a game changer. Fortunately for the negative. And it's also very unfortunate because U.S. had vaccines available for months, and because of this anti-vax movements and people refusing to get vaccinated, a significant portion of the population, especially in the South, is exposed to this Delta variant, which is very difficult to escape from.
So now apparently, according to this poll, Americans want the vaccinations mandated. They want restrictions mandated. But around the world, you really see this divide because on the one hand, in countries that have had lockdowns and very strict measures, you have protests in the streets counter to that. And then in countries where there's been a laxity, you have mass protests criticizing the governments for not doing enough. So is this a case of people just not knowing what they want in the face of crisis? What do you think is at the heart of this endless fight?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to understand the psychology or sociology of the populations because on the one hand, we don't want another lockdown, and I don't think any government or anyone wants that because that has an enormous cost for education, for economy, and so on and so forth. And we have a very, very potent weapon in our hands. I mean, if 80 to 85% of the population were to be vaccinated, we wouldn't have this problem right now. It's difficult to understand. On the one hand, they don't want any lockdowns, they don't want any suffering. On the other hand, these are typically the same people who refuse to wear masks or who get vaccinated. So I think, what the governments have to do, and as you pointed out, the majority of the population wants this too, is to bring restrictions to those who have not been vaccinated, and that they will be restricted from entering crowded areas, closed areas. Either they have to be vaccinated or provide PCR test proof, and enforce in certain areas such as healthcare institutions and so on. I see this as only way out of this because there's no way a lockdown will prevent the spread of Delta from this point on.
I was surprised a bit to see these numbers in this. I mean, it is one new poll, but it's telling because I think what tends to have the loudest voices are those stories you see of COVID exhaustion and large groups of people where they've had enough, they're refusing to wear masks, especially young people. And you also have the case of people who say, well, I've already been exposed to COVID. If I'm exposed to this Delta variant, it's probably not going to be that bad. So does it surprise you to see that now, this late in the game, Americans are saying, okay, we should be doing more? It's quite late.
It's terribly late, and the cost of this is now we're back to about 1,000 deaths per day. I mean, this should have never happened in the United States of America. In Florida, Texas, Mississippi, number of Alabama, they're out of ICUs, and this also affects other people who do not have COVID but who have to be treated in the hospital, who need to be in the ICU. There are simply no beds left. The cost to society is so enormous that it's just crazy. People are still refusing to get vaccinated, and then that would, 98% of the cases do not end up in the hospital or death for that matter. I think the government has to do something because there's going to be need for these mandates. Otherwise, it will unfortunately get worse.
Yeah, and those who've had the mandates don't want them, and those who don't have them now want them back. Interesting dynamic. Derya, thanks so much for your insights.